Good evening, everyone. I'll be chairing the public meeting of council as well as the council meeting this evening, as the mayor is indisposed this evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the public meeting of council. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda. I have moved by Councillor Abdallah, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere. Those in favor? And that's carried. And this meeting has been called to consider the application under the City of Pembroke Official Plan 2016 to redesignate the property municipally known as 50 Alexander Street and 100 Albert Street from a flood fringe central commercial designation to a flood fringe open space designation, and further under the City of Pembroke zoning bylaw 2020-05 to rezone the said property from a central commercial 21 flood fringe holding to a C3 22 FFH zone to an open space flood fringe OS FF zone to permit only parkland and no commercial uses. Clerk, please report how notice of the hearing was given.
Notice was given in the June 23rd, 2022 edition of the Pembroke Observer and News.
Thank you. I would ask that for a planning report from Ms. Sorio, the city planner, regarding this application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. An application for rezoning and official plan amendment has been submitted for 100 Albert Street and 50 Alexander Street. Direction was given to begin the rezoning and official plan amendment process for the Pembroke waterfront lands to permit parkland only with no commercial uses. This rezoning and official plan amendment does not include the Cockburn parking lot or the Marina parking lot. Since these lands are mainly used for open space purposes, it has been suggested that these lands be redesignated in the official plan to flood fringe open space and rezoned to open space flood fringe to recognize the actual and intended use of always being land for parkland purposes. This application is to change the official plan designation to eliminate the commercial uses and just recognize the existing open space uses. The open space designation in the official plan states that this classification of land is intended to serve a variety of purposes in the community, including playgrounds, active recreational areas, passive areas for leisure and nature appreciation, open space linkages for recreational trails, and pedestrian walks. The intent of council is to recognize the variety of parks and open space areas as an important part of the community fabric and to ensure that the areas devoted to the parks are adequate for the recreation and leisure needs of the community. The official plan also states that lands along the Ottawa River are the showcase for the city, both in terms of providing open space to meet the needs of residents as well as to anchor a program for tourism development. Therefore, to change the official plan to a flood fringe open space would meet the intent of the plan as the lands are already or are being planned for open space uses. The lands located in the flood fringe states that developments may occur according to the underlying land use designation. In this case, if approved, it would be open space. The official plan goes on to state that if no building permits shall be issued for buildings or structures unless flood-proof to a design elevation of 114.2 meters. Therefore, this means that the lands to be designated as flood fringe open space can be developed as long as it's within the permitted uses and flood-proof to a design elevation of 114.2 meters. The present zoning of the waterfront lands is presently C3-21-FF, and this permits a variety of commercial uses. But the present and proposed use of the waterfront lands includes the Kiwanis Walkway, the amphitheater, playground, and the proposed new Arboretum, which is an area bounded by Alexander Street, Albert Street, and Fred Blackstein Boulevard. The permitted uses in the open space zone include agricultural uses, cemetery, conservation use, food vehicle, golf course, parking lot, private park, and public park. These open space uses are more in line with what presently exists at the Pembroke waterfront. The property is serviced by municipal water and sanitary services, and it meets the provincial policy statement as it promotes public streets, spaces, and facilities to be safe, meet the needs of pedestrians, foster social interaction, and facilitate active transportation and community connectivity, and it also provides opportunity for public access to shorelines. Therefore, by redesignating and rezoning the lands to open space meets the intent of the provincial policy statement. The Planning Advisory Committee has heard this particular application at its last meeting and is recommending the approval of the official plan amendment and the rezoning to council this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Sorio. Was there any opposition to this application?
There was no opposition to this application.
Thank you. Was there any support for this application?
There was support in a letter dated July 6th from the Climate Action Advisory Committee. And a synopsis of that letter says the Climate Committee would like to comment particularly that this rezoning is a significant action in addressing climate change. In proposing this zoning amendment, the Planning Advisory and Adjustment Committee has applied a climate lens by considering the likelihood of increased flooding, since greater fluctuations in the spring freshet can be expected with increased climate impacts. In addition, this move is a strong climate adaptive strategy that should be noted as a significant step in addressing future impacts of climate change for the city. Sincerely, Dorian Pierce, who is the chair, and Anne McKay, who's the vice chair of the Climate Action Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Are there any questions of council? Seeing none, if any members of the public wish to be notified as to council's decision, they can contact Ms. Sorio at City Hall, and I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Giacomo, second by Councillor Abdallah. This public meeting has been adjourned.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the combined committee meeting of Tuesday, August 9th. Call to order. Are there any disclosure of community interest? Seeing none. Entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda. Moved by Councillor Frenier, second by Councillor Abdallah. Those in favor? Approved. Approval of the minutes of the combined meeting of July 12th. Moved by Councillor Giacomo, second by Councillor Abdallah. Those in favor? Approved. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none. First up, we have delegation. Fred Blackstein, welcome to the table.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for the informal nature of the last-minute handout. I realized we didn't have two screens because I did want to have in front of you, just for your own reference, what the layout of the new waterfront arboretum looks like, hence the little scrap of paper. My purpose today is to bring you up to date quite quickly on what's been happening down at the Arboretum area since our last meeting here, and particularly note that the passing of the new zoning bylaw and comments from the Ecology Committee are also most relevant to what we're going to be talking about, because much of climate change is not only adaptation, but mitigation. And part of what we're going to be doing is mitigating climate change through the planting of many, many trees down there. So with that little introduction, I'll move on and bring you up to date on what has been happening. Sean has displayed, and everything will be on the screen. I'm going to save a lot of words and a lot of talking by using a dozen pictures very briefly, so I won't have too much to say. That picture orients you at the corner of Albert Street and the Boulevard. And although Ms. Sorio uses the name of the Boulevard, I never do, because we still can't come to grips with that. So at the corner of Albert Street and the Boulevard, on your little plan, it shows the book tree. And I'm going to quickly take you through how things went from 0 to warp speed. Driving around the corner one morning, I noticed that great big stump of a cottonwood tree, 150 years old, and we had been talking about a book tree for weeks and weeks, and rather than importing an old tree or hydropole or something, we started work on that tree. And talking to Mr. Lewis's people and Parks and Rec people, we pleaded and left that stump there. Next slide, please, Sean. Here it is all finished with a nice new haircut on top. And you'll see the book cabinets at a long range there. But it was kind of interesting because my other half, who's done all the pictorial work for everything we've done down there, said she really wanted to plant something up top. And lo and behold, nature took its course. And this is the book tree. There's no human intervention there. Divine intervention. I think they heard her. Next one, please, Sean. So here's what it looks like a little closer. The cabinets are currently empty. And the next slide, please, shows a young man from Fellows High School in the carpentry classes who very kindly volunteered and built the cabinet inserts. So those inserts now hold quite a number of books, and the Pembroke Public Library is taking responsibility for keeping those cabinets stocked. And it's just amazing how many moms and dads and grandparents are down there now reading to their kids, and we'll show you the gazebos and the tables in a moment. But young Caden Hiltz is his name, did this as volunteer time, and the library under Carthy is looking after keeping it stocked. It's a little different than most book trees, which say, take a book, leave a book. Carthy and the library team are keeping it stocked and saying to people, if you want to keep that book, you're welcome to it. Because rather than doing discards, as they normally do, everything comes down here. Next slide, please. So talking about planting trees, and in regard to climate mitigation as well, and the Ecology Committee that advises City Council is delighted when they heard how many trees we're putting in. This photo is from Tree Planting Day, and the trees that are being planted there, which you'll see on your little image there as just little bushy circles, there's about 20 images on the circles. We put in a total of 30 trees now. They are what are called large caliper, meaning they're not seedlings. They are, as you can see, Doug Fee there, the tree spade is 6 foot tall. So you're looking at trees that are 12 to 15 feet tall with a decent diameter. They'll be giving shade very, very soon. The next slide shows Brian Hughley's equipment in the background, and this is our tree planting crew of 24 volunteers from the Hort Society, students from the college, and we put in 26 trees that day. Another bunch have been added. We've got about 30 new trees now in the Arboretum already. Next, please, Sean. Now, I'm going to pause on this one for a moment because it is significant. Location-wise, you can see the book tree in the background through the underneath the gazebo. And that is Albert Street you're looking at, and the sort of temporary washrooms are beyond the book tree, just so everyone is oriented there. Home Depot, as you've probably seen in the media, very kindly agreed to donate one of these new gazebos worth about $2,500, give or take, taxes, etc. And then they were persuaded to also let us have the floor demonstration model, which was fully erected on the floor, because when we looked at this blueprint and thought just a single gazebo, it would be nice to anchor both ends of the Arboretum. And difficult to get permits to move such huge, oversized loads in one piece, but thanks to the farm community and who I call the gazebo fairy, that arrived early one morning, fully intact, set up and ready to go. And we don't record how that happened precisely, but if you look at a very beautiful installation that Team Home Depot did, they not only bolted it down to the footings there and seeded it to grass. Here's Team Home Depot at work on the gazebo at the other end of the park. Now, Sean, can you go backwards one, please, if it's not too much trouble? I want to dwell on this one for a moment because of the table. City Council will recall that they agreed to the purchase of 6 of these eco-friendly tables. I want to just talk a little bit about them for a moment. These tables are made out of approximately 1,200 recycled drinking bottles or single-use plastic items. They are advertised as being very eco-friendly. We gave up on the idea of concrete. We didn't want to do more wood requiring maintenance. This council approved the purchase of those for just under $10,000. That is for 6 of them, by the way. 4 of them are standard, like the one you see, and now under each gazebo, since that photo was taken, is a wheelchair accessible table under each of the 2 gazebos. Councillor Abdallah seems to be invading my office space there, because every time I want to hold a meeting there, he's there. But I note that because they're fully occupied. Moms and kids and families are just flooding the parks. You cannot get a table there at lunchtime. The population loves those tables, and I would just note that in future, when new tables are going to be required in other locations, we'll strongly recommend this supplier. They weigh 220 pounds each. You're not going to walk away with them, and they've worked out extremely well. So forward 2 then, Sean, the one you had, Team Home Depot, and the next one, please. Want to move now on your diagram to what was the gardener's shed, and you'll see it, very tiny little item behind the public washrooms on the earlier sketch. The gardener at the Pembroke waterfront now, Jenny, and her assistants, because it's so busy down there, we have 2 young people helping Jenny now, are tending to a total of 26 large floral gardens, as well as the downtown core now under the PBIA. And the space we had at the marina office was 1/2 of an 8-foot by 8-foot storage shed, so about 32 square feet. It was recognized we needed something much better, so Algonquin College got together and designed, and you'll see the finished product in a moment. That's the college crew. We simply paid for the materials, and Algonquin College's carpentry program took this on as their signature project. Next slide, please. And here are the keys being turned over to Kathy Hughley on the right, president of the Hort Society, and on your left is Jenny Buchholz, our gardener. Adam Johns is the coordinator of carpentry. He even managed to score some of the roofing that was left over from the big public washrooms. So it's a perfect fit. It blends in beautifully with the new washrooms. And the final picture is it now a tiny home. Next slide, please. It took Jenny only a couple of days to get the flower boxes full, and it really has worked out extremely well. It's large enough, it didn't require permits because it's less than 100 square feet, and it's 8 by 12, 96 square feet. We checked that we didn't need permitting, and we've actually held a couple of meetings in there now during stormy weather. Councillor Abdallah and Gervais have both been attending occasionally when the sky opens up. So that's the end of the garden shed part. I just want to formally acknowledge Algonquin College once again for everything they do at the waterfront. Next one, please, Sean. This was an impromptu photograph. I was just down there having a quick meeting and noticed that people were coming down. This was 11:30 on a rainy morning. It was raining. The place was full. If you look at the parking lot, there's nowhere to park. You'll see cars being unloaded with kids and various other equipment. So I just shot that photo to show that the gazebos have only been in place for a matter of a couple of weeks, and already people are phoning and saying, can we reserve one for lunch? Can we reserve one for a meeting? And the answer is unfortunately no, first come, first served. But that's a typical bad day. Right now, you cannot find a parking place. If you come down there midday or this evening, the place is absolutely jammed. Next one, please. So now I'm going to refer you to the area called the Fountain, which is over by the center of Albert Street. And you'll see that the original artist rendering was a fountain and rose gardens. We came to that idea originally because of having spent time in Belleville when I was away, and a place called Corbyville had this beautiful rose garden nearby with a beautiful fountain. But as the committee began looking more and more at different kind of fountains, it turned out they all looked like they belonged in the Vatican, and we couldn't find anything that the committee agreed would be suitable or appropriate. So Councillor Abdallah did display at a previous council meeting, and we'll move to the next one, please, Sean. And we're going to pause on this one for a little bit. You had seen this artist's rendering at a previous meeting. It was not being presented formally, but it was displayed. So I'd just like to tell you a little bit about this, and that will be pretty well the end of my presentation. This is an artist's rendering based on input from everyone that we spoke to in the community, many, many people. We could find nothing in the fountains, whether at the nurseries or the foundries or the construction firms, that we thought would fit the rugged landscape of the Ottawa Valley. Long story short, this is what has come to pass, and our committee has endorsed this completely. And as well, you'll note the inscription that Barbara put at the bottom. It was the wounded warriors from Garrison Petawawa spend a lot of time at your waterfront. You may not even be aware of that. But their pastor brings the wounded warriors down to the Pembroke waterfront on a weekly basis, or the Kiwanis Fieldhouse if the weather is inclement. And they spend time there reflecting, seeking tranquility and relief from the traumas they've suffered, primarily Afghan veterans. And this concept was presented to them. I was invited to attend, and I'm not a wounded warrior, but 25 years of search and rescue entitled me to go and talk with these people concerning traumas that we've all experienced. The end result was they heartily endorsed this concept, saying that this is exactly what they would love to see, where they could go and sit on the rocks or the benches and seek tranquility. Paramedics, I'm an honorary paramedic for the County of Renfrew, are all in favor of seeing something like this, and first responders and everyone else in the community deserves a place where they can relax and reflect. I'm going to give you a little bit of the technical detail on this, and that will essentially be the end of my talk. And I will be seeking approval from this council, or endorsement, whichever is the appropriate term, to proceed with this. What we have here is a pondless, one word, pondless, no pond, no open water facility. This is the new standard of public parks throughout North America, that you do not have a reservoir at ground level that kids can get into or maybe get into trouble in. So this pondless technology is quite slick. There's a firm called Aquascape for anyone that's looking for something to do tomorrow. Just Google the word Aquascape, and what you will find is that they are the North American leaders of pondless structures. Under the ground, at the base of the waterfall, a opening is excavated, only to a depth, though, of 20 inches. In that space are placed specially constructed boxes, which they call aqua boxes. They essentially are a milk crate. An upside-down milk crate fills the excavation. That keeps the sides from collapsing. It's lined with a swimming pool liner and a geotech membrane. And what happens is that is the reservoir where all the water is. Very powerful pump sits in the bottom of that in what's called the pump vault, and pumps out into the sluiceways above, something in the order of 8,000 gallons an hour of water to give all the right sound and fury and motion. And it is not connected to, the most important point, there is no connection to city water or city sewer. It is a closed recirculating system that will require a top-up perhaps once a week, perhaps only once every 2 weeks, and we have the facilities to do that. It will be connected. It was originally going to be solar-powered, but once we move to the bigger feature, we do need to connect to the grid. Our committee is working with two people, I should note particularly. Mr. Lewis is behind me, and his team has been working with Ottawa River Power Corp, who have been helping with the layout to bring some power there. So we're working officially through Ottawa River Power Corp, and I've spoken to the building inspector in writing, and we have confirmation from him that there is not a permit issue for this structure. There is no code issue, no permit issue. So we just have to be sure that we build a structure which is safe, with no pond, and is not able to represent any kind of a hazard. So the pondless waterfall concept, we have set aside $25,000 for this particular feature. You are aware, other than the composite tables, we have not asked the city for any funding at this point, and will not be asking for any additional. We have almost $100,000 in our account through donations. This facility is budgeted at $25,000, and one of the major construction firms in Pembroke, and because we're strictly operating on a handshake at this point, I would note that I'll just note one of the major construction firms has agreed to do all of the work, the labor, the heavy equipment, and merely ask to be paid for the armor stone or the quarry stone that you see there. And that's a handshake. It will end up in writing if and only if this council endorses or approves going ahead. So our total expense on this will probably be less than half of what we set aside for budget purposes. This would be a major tourist attraction. There's nothing like this in any public space anywhere in Eastern Ontario that we've been able to determine. You can see the height is approximately 6 feet, 5 foot 6 inches. The spillways, as they're called, are just about 5 feet off the ground. We've done prototype builds. We've built a prototype, and the sound is just perfect, very relaxing. Electricity costs will be $1.60 a day, which our committee is prepared to put into a holding account, or it's basically a cup of coffee a day to run 10 hours a day for 100 days in the year. $160 to $200 operating expense annually, and there are no maintenance issues because it's not connected to sewer or water. Mr. Lewis's team phoned me one day with an urgent call that they had, final slide please, Sean. They have discovered a boulder. So they're rebuilding Fraser Street, and get this phone call saying, we have something you might want that we're having great trouble getting rid of because it was discovered under the sidewalk on Fraser Street. And working with Mr. Lewis's team, we agreed that we would deposit it at the waterfront. Quite the little trip, but there it is, and that will be, and can you go back just for a moment, one slide please, Sean? That will be the anchor stone that you see on the left. Now I should note that all of these stones on the waterfall are going to be engraved with the type of rock which they are for educational purposes. And if you were to look really closely, you'd see feldspar, granite, basalt, etc. This big rock is not feldspar, which the young lady is sitting on, but it is appropriate to anchor the left side. So with that, just 2 quick points to mention. The other 2 items on the plan which you have are the presenter's corner and the bird habitat. I would just note that the bird habitat is well underway, and you don't see it because it's mostly hidden in the trees. But the high school students have built a total of 25 bird houses, feeding stations, nesting boxes, and they have been mounted in the trees and under the ledges in that area called bird habitat. There's still a few big items to go in there, like the bird bath, pardon me. And the final point, the presenter's corner is going to hopefully be sponsored by a couple of corporations here in Pembroke, and it will only be 100 square feet. The small raised staged area will be approximately 8 by 12 with a bit of a pergola type structure over top. We don't see that permitting is required, but we don't feel the requirement to come back yet again to ask City Council for permission to proceed on the basic premise. Unlike the change from fountain to waterfall, this presenter's corner will be more or less as shown, a place for small groups to read, do astronomy, small performances for very small groups. So with that, I'll wrap up, and I should note there's been a significant change to the zoning. Thank you for that. And Deputy Mayor and Councillor Abdallah have both made possible a community watch program to be taking place at the Pembroke waterfront starting almost immediately. And this is a proactive move to make sure that the waterfront remains the jewel of the city, safe and secure for everyone. Because of the huge amount of volunteer time that's invested there and significant funds as well, it was decided that proactively getting a community watch program would be a good thing. So as I conclude, I would refer to the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Abdallah to offer any comment to close that loop.
Well, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Fred. We're going to have a special meeting at the amphitheater on August 27th, which will be publicized in the coming weeks at 11 o'clock. For any residents who want to join the Pembroke Waterfront Park Community Watch Zone to explain the program. And as Fred said, it's just a proactive move to make the waterfront a safe and welcoming place.
Councillor Fenny?
Thank you, Fred. I just have a question about the aquascape aquascape fountain. So that is going where the other fountain was.
Yes, and the boulder, Sean, can you find the picture of the boulder for me, if you wouldn't mind? And then Councillor Frenier can look over and that positions you perfectly. You can see the new gazebo at the Book Tree, and you can see Albert Street behind, and the marina on your left.
Okay, so my question is, what's going to be behind that wall?
Very, very important. Behind that wall will be a berm called a landscaping feature. The Pembroke Waterfront Park is filled with, I call them berms, but the architects that worked with us call them landscape contours. If you visualize the playground area, the waterfront park as a whole, the place has 3 or 4 large mounds of earth grassed over that kids love to roll down. They're called landscape contours. There will be backing against that, Councillor, a landscape contour, but critically placed so that if you're standing on top of the contour behind it, you cannot reach up to get up on the top rocks.
Okay, that's what I was worried about.
And
Okay,
we will-
well, thank you for that. And my other question is in regards to winter, like drainage in the winter, so staff would have to take care of that, I would imagine, or?
It's a very quick job. All that happens is we turn the waterfall on and put a cover over the aquascape boxes at the bottom and let the 180 gallons of water just distribute itself. Not much more difficult than winterizing your family's RV.
Okay, good. So we'll have better luck hopefully than we did with the fountain down in the park.
The whole reason, Councillor, that we went to a pondless recycling system was to have it as a freestanding structure with no impact on the city's infrastructure.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Jackno?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Fred, again for a wonderful presentation. And kudos to the councillors so heavily involved. I know the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Abdallah, worked diligently. It's a project for them that they undertake wholeheartedly. I had the opportunity the other night to watch my granddaughter play soccer on the soccer field in behind Miramichi Lodge. And sometimes you don't see the forest for the trees, but the arboretum that is there along the walkway. When I was a young boy, I mean, that hadn't even been planted, but that arboretum is now a forest. And I looked at it, and it's hard to take in. And I said to my wife, I said, you know, these were just small trees just a few years ago, but now they're providing shade, you know, for birds and animals and a place for human beings to have a picnic. It was wonderful. And I can remember growing up in the west end of Pembroke, I'm still there, you know, where Miramichi Lodge stood was the old, I guess, the Wilkinson Eddie Match splint factory or whatever. And they made splints, and all you saw there was drying lumber, and there was a forest of trees, all right, but there were stunted swamp alders where the kids used to play. But that has all been changed so drastically through the work of former councillors, et cetera. So congratulations to everyone. I had the opportunity, you spoke about the healing of the soldiers coming there for, you know, to have some respite from whatever it is. I spoke with retired General Dean Milder, who was the brigade commander when I represented the mayor at the base for a change of command ceremony. And we spoke briefly about the soldiers and how they were coming back, you know, to their regular lives. And we had a few exchanges of thoughts about that. And he spoke about the community interaction, that how Pembroke and the other communities are so welcoming and welcoming the soldiers back. And especially if you're near running water, we all know scientifically there's an ionic exchange where serotonin is built in the brain, you know, that gives people with depression a lift. And so having a waterfall of that nature truly is medicinal. I mean, you know, the fact is there that running water changes the ionic structure, and you're to be congratulated. We'll see lots of people using that, and it'll be another wonderful mark in our community to the great job that this council is doing, and to you, Fred, and your volunteers. Thank you.
Do I seek approval in a formal manner, Mr. Chair, or?
I guess
Sorry.
that would be go around and take a general head nod. Are we all in agreement that the design should move forward with the feature? Then, yep. Then I see that direction is given that, yes, we have council's approval to move forward with the planned water feature.
Thank you, and I'm sorry if I took up more time than scheduled, but it's a pleasure working with the city council.
Thank you, Fred.
All right. So again, thank you, Fred, for presentation, bringing us up to speed. Next up, first order is new business is roll number 4764. A whole bunch of zeros. We'll just call it 224 to 230 Hink Street.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Individuals may remember this property on Hink Street as, in addition to other uses, was a dry cleaning operation, which unfortunately burnt down several years ago now and left behind a tax bill which has increased over the years. Unfortunately, the property owner at the time has since passed away, and there was insufficient funds left to pay for those taxes that were due to the city in the estate. So we're now looking at attempting to do something with this property, and the Municipal Act does allow the treasurer to write off unpaid taxes in these types of unique situations, just so long as council is accepting that conducting a tax sale would be ineffective and inappropriate in a case such as this. So therefore, she would have the ability to write off the taxes without proceeding to a tax sale, which is normally what occurs. So Ms. Lochte has provided information in a report that indicates in her reasoning this would be an ineffective or inappropriate candidate as a tax sale for the following reasons. One is that the amount of taxes owing far exceeds the value of the property, which is the case here. And as a site of a former dry cleaning operation, the City Council has previously made the conscious decision not to vest or own this property, and completing a tax sale process would decrease the potential tax recovery, because if one would imagine there's insufficient value in this land to cover the taxes now, and tax sales are not inexpensive, so therefore you'd just be incurring additional costs which you would not get the revenue to cover. So we have been in discussions with the executrix with respect to the deceased, and have in place a proposed agreement whereby she will permit the city to sell this property on behalf of the estate, with any proceeds realized going towards paying off whatever amount of taxes that we can raise the money to do. So we've been looking at that, and the intent would be to seek expressions of interest on the property, similar to how council currently sells off its surplus lands. So at the conclusion of that process, if it's deemed acceptable by council, we would be bringing back a further report to council on the results of the process, and then council would have the decision then to make, to determine to sell for the highest bidder to recoup as much of the taxes as you wish, or to consider offers that would maximize, as an example, future tax revenues and benefit to the municipality, such as if it's going to be developed and put a building on it and get taxes into the future, as opposed to somebody perhaps paying a little bit higher price and just using it for a parking lot or hold it to flip. So those are the things that we're looking at. With respect to financial implications, there is a sufficient allowance for doubtful accounts. We do have a reserve that would offset the balance between the tax write-off and what we would get from the tax, or rather from the sale of the property. So we're looking, this is more information right now because we do have a bylaw before you this evening for formal direction so that we can legally start this process. So we're looking for any comments from
Councillor Frenny?
I was just going to say I support the suggestion. That's it. So I don't think you need a motion then. You said it's coming forth later?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments about this item as it's presented later this evening? Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Next up is request for funding 2022 Municipal Culture Festival. I guess you're up again.
Okay. Thank you, thank you. So staff is seeking direction on this one regarding the approval of $10,000 of funding to the Pembroke Public Library for the 2022 Multicultural Festival, and this can be funded from the city's budget contingency. We believe there might have been an an error in communication regarding this matter, because we believe that the intent of the library was to ask the city to fund this particular event. However, from a technical perspective, which is the world that the treasurer and the auditors live in, there was never a formal request that was brought forward and passed at budget time, so therefore did not make it into your approved budget. So the library has provided a formal letter of request, and we're seeking direction from committee on that.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I sit on the library board together with Councillor Abdallah, and yes, it was always the intention that to seek funds associated with this multicultural event. It's in the minutes of the library board meetings. I can indicate that, and I did go back to our budget, purposely, multicultural was a separate section of the library board budget with money coming in, money going out, and them equaling each other. And yes, I would say that an error in communication, I can't speak for Councillor Abdallah, I know for myself, the intent is that those funds would be secured through taxation to assist with the multicultural event. If you've been watching social media and so forth, it's going to be a huge event to draw individuals into the city of Pembroke and celebrate multiculturalism in Pembroke. I can indicate that the CEO, Karthi Rajamani, is also securing a great deal of other funds, individuals who are sponsoring and providing funds to this great event. So, but to recap is, yes, it was always the intention of the Pembroke Public Library Board to have it as a separate line item. I can say that the library and the library board are doing this not only in terms of the library, but if you watch the marketing carefully, it's also a city event. It's the city celebrating multiculturalism in Pembroke. So I would be hoping that council would support the funds coming from the contingency fund for this purpose.
Councillor Abdallah?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I totally agree with Deputy Mayor's comments. I recall that that's exactly what occurred at the library board meeting. We passed the motion to request the funding. There was some miscommunication, which can happen at budget time. I met today with Karthi and Anna and Simon from the library. We were down at the waterfront planning the event where we're going to put all the food vendors, all the artists, and Karthi told me that they've received 30,000 hits on their different social media sites. She's expecting at least 500 people. Many cultural performances are going to be going on. Caribbean dancing, Chinese dance artists from Ottawa, French-Canadian workshop, Flight Kind, many events. True festival from 10 o'clock in the morning until 7:30 at night. And the city of Pembroke is, they're part of this, and this is only going to grow, and it'll be the first major destination event at the waterfront. So fully support the request, and a lot of effort, a lot of sponsors, as Deputy Mayor said, but it's a big budget, and multiculturalism is so important to the community. So we hope that council will support this, and so make a motion to for the $10,000 request.
You seconder? Councillor Frenier? Okay, I do have Councillor Jacquinot for a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Based on the comments by the Deputy Mayor, I'm totally in agreement with coming forward with the money, whether it comes from contingency or somewhere else. This program that has to be supported. I took the opportunity to look online to see the various entertainment acts that they'll be bringing in, and they're just phenomenal. So it'll attract lots of people to our community. Totally in favor. Thank you.
Councillor Frenier?
No, I was just going to say I was very impressed. I've seen the itinerary, and I think you're right. It's going to get bigger and better every year. So fully support it.
Do you have a final comment, Councillor Abdallah?
Point of information. So if it rains, The rain date, Carthy's going to make the call on the Thursday, and we have the Pembroke Memorial Center as a backup. So Ron Conroy, the acting Director of Parks and Recreation, and Mr. Joe Brown, we've been meeting with them on a weekly basis. So we're there today again, planning at the floor of the PMC. So rain or shine, the show is going to go on.
All right, so we do have a motion on the floor and a second to, for approval of the $10,000. Call a question, those in favor? Approved.
Chair, just to confirm that that's to come from the contingency budget?
Correct, as motion to come from the contingency budget.
Thank you.
Next up, item C, Pembroke Regional Hospital parking bylaw enforcement.
A
Sorry.
request has been received from SP Plus, the parking company dealing with parking areas at the Pembroke Regional Hospital, to amend a bylaw to add a new bylaw enforcement officer for enforcement of the Pembroke Hospital parking areas. Presently, there are 2 approved enforcement officers to issue tickets in the hospital parking lots, and one of those enforcement officers is on a leave of absence, and a new interim employee has been hired, Joe Phelan, and the bylaw then must be amended to permit the new SP Plus employee to issue parking tickets at the Pembroke Regional Hospital. A bylaw has been prepared this evening for the council meeting.
Any comments as the bylaw will be coming forward later this evening? Okay, so no, thank you. Next up, French Public School Board request to use PMC parking spaces. Sorry.
A request has been received from the Conseil des Écoles Publiques de l'Est de l'Ontario to allow their staff at the Equinox School to park at the Pembroke Memorial Centre, or the PMC, for the 2022-2023 school year. The Equinox School will be undergoing construction for a new daycare centre and playground area at 399 Isabella Street. The school board anticipates this construction and redevelopment of the site will take the whole school year. This means there will be no parking on the property while the construction is taking place. Presently, there are 46 parking spaces at the Equinox School, and the school board has an agreement with the city for another 35 spaces at the northeast corner of Pembroke Street West and Christie Street. The school board is asking if they can use 25 to 30 parking spaces at the PMC from the end of August to the end of June on weekdays from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. It is anticipated there will be issues with parking in the PMC parking lot due to the duration of this request. There are approximately 90 parking spaces in the PMC lot. These spaces are used for staff and users of the arena, as well as 9 permits are dedicated to the staff at Wellspring Dental. Also, there will be events during the year, such as Silver Stick, that will require the whole parking lot on certain days. This request would take up a third of the parking spaces. Winter operations would also be an issue, as this lot is typically not plowed prior to the time school staff would be arriving. So city staff have reviewed the request and recommend the use of 25 to 30 parking spaces at the PMC overflow parking area. This parking lot is located across the street from the Pembroke Memorial Centre and has approximately 60 parking spaces. This recommendation to use the PMC overflow lot would be subject to the following conditions. The use of the PMC overflow lot would be from weekdays from September 1st to June 30th, 2023 from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. The city would still have use of the overflow parking lot on weekends and after 5 p.m. on weekdays. Also, on weekday daytime events that require the overflow lot, the city is willing to share the lot with the school board so that the school board staff do not have to look for alternative parking arrangements on those days. The school board would also be responsible for the maintenance of the parking lot, which includes snow removal and sanding from Monday to Friday, and insurance would be required, naming the city as third party to the school board's insurance policy. Secondly, the school board, in its letter to the city, is asking to amend their parking agreement with the city at 415 Pembroke Street West to authorize parking after 5 p.m. and on weekends. The school board feels this would help accommodate users of Festival Hall who will no longer have access to the school's parking lot, and will also help accommodate staff and parents during parent-teacher meetings, etc. The agreement does state that the city grants to the school board a license in common with the city and those authorized by the city to use the parking lot at 415 Pembroke Street West for the purpose of parking motor vehicles for the school board, its employees, and all those uses related thereto outside of the school hours. Therefore, an amendment to the parking agreement is not required, as it already permits the school board to use the parking after school hours along with other members of the public, just that the parking after hours is on a first-come, first-served basis. There will be no cost to the city, and the school board will maintain this parking lot, the overflow parking lot, from Monday to Friday. So based on committee direction, a bylaw and agreement can be prepared for council's review and approval at the September 6th, 2022 council meeting.
Councillor Frenne.
Yeah, I would put a motion forward that we support the agreement as presented.
Councillor Abdallah.
I'll second the motion.
Further comment about the proposed agreement? Seeing none, call a question. Those in favor? Approved. Right. Now we're up to Bennett Street Water Main Reconstruction Phase 1 Tender Award. Mr. Lewis, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Operations Department recommends the following. Committee approve award for the Bennett Street Water Main Reconstruction Phase 1 Tender Contract Number 22-1733 to Eastway Contracting in the amount of $429,82 plus HST, that being the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Committee approve additional expenditures in the amount of $120,000 for a contingency allowance. The total value of the recommendations equal $1,818,429.82 plus the applicable HST. This contract includes the replacement of the water main on Bennett Street from Everett Street to Boundary Road and includes water main on International Drive to approximately 20 meters south of Boundary Road. Full road reconstruction with the addition of a paved shoulder is included in the project. The contract was publicly advertised and tendered. 3 bids were received. Tenders were open on Wednesday, August 3rd at a virtual meeting with bidders in attendance. They were evaluated by the city's treasurer and the manager of operations. McIntosh Perry, the design consultant, reviewed and analyzed the bids. Bids were received as follows. Eastway Contracting, Inc. at $1,698,429.82. Bonisher Excavating, Inc. at $2,040,544.25. And RGT Kluche Construction at $2,046,288.90. As noted on previous reports related to this project, the water main on Bennett Street, including the intersection of Boundary Road at International Drive, has suffered multiple breaks over recent years. The risk of future failures is considered highly likely, with significant impact on the city's water distribution system. The water main is a main connection from the trunk water main on Boundary Road from the water plant to the Quarry Road Reservoir. This project is part of a 2-phase project that includes the Bennett Street water main as well as water main on Boundary Road from Bennett Street to Paul Martin Drive, including a new water main crossing underneath the Taylor Bridge. The city has received funding from the ISIP Green Infrastructure Fund for this project. The federal contribution is fixed at 50% of the eligible costs, amounting to approximately $1.9 million. The provincial contribution fixed at 33.33%, amounting to roughly $1.6 million, and the city's contribution to the project is 16.67%, and the city will be responsible to fund all amounts in excess of the eligible funds, including any budget increases and cost overruns. So financial implications. As part of the 2022 capital budget, a budget of $1,910,857 was identified for the Bennett Street water main replacement project. Project costs as tendered, including contract and field administration, construction, additional expenditures, and net HST, total $1,906,072. Based on the funding agreement, the federal contribution for the 2022 portion of the project is roughly $953,000. The provincial contribution is approximately $635,000, and the city's portion of the Phase 1 works is almost $318,000. The above totals include the contract administration services to McIntosh Perry based on their quoted values submitted in their design and contract administration proposal. The surplus budget funds will be carried over into the 2023 budget cycle for the second phase of the project. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Jacno?
Mr. Chair, I would move we accept the recommendation. This is important work that has to be done. That's my recommendation. Hope someone will second it.
Councillor Frenier?
Seconded.
Any further comment? Then call the question. Those in favor? Approved. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Dalla, Councillor Jacno, we are adjourned from the combined meeting. Thank you.
I'd like to call this council meeting for August 9th, 2022 to order. I would ask all members of council to stand, and I would ask that those who wish, each in their own way, silently join in a prayer of guidance over these proceedings. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this afternoon? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of council of the regular meeting of council of July 12th, 2022. Moved by Councillor Abdallah, second by Councillor Plummer. Those in favor? That's carried. I would entertain a motion to adopt the minutes from the combined committee of July 12th, 2022. Moved by Councillor Giacono, second by Councillor Plummer. Those in favor? It's carried. I would entertain a motion to receive the minutes from the Pembroke Heritage Murals Committee of July 6, 2022. Councillor Abdallah moving, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Those in favor? And that is carried. Committee reports, Combined Committee Bennett Street Water Main Reconstruction, Phase 1. Councillor Plummer.
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Frenier, that tender number 2022-1733 for Bennett Street Water Main Reconstruction Phase 1 be awarded to Eastway Contracting, Inc. in the amount of $1,698,429.82 plus HST, and the additional expenditures in the amount of $120,000 be adopted for a contingency allowance for a total value. The recommendation equals $1,818,429.82 plus applicable HST.
Thank you. Any comments, Councillor Plummer?
This was discussed earlier this evening.
Okay, call the question. Those in favor? And that's carried. Next up, we have 2022-58, an appointment of bylaw officers. Councillor Lafreniere.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Andrew Plummer, that bylaw 2022-58, being a bylaw to appoint municipal law enforcement officers to enforce parking provisions in the parking lots associated with the Pembroke Regional Hospital, be adopted and passed. And further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Thank you. Any comments, Councillor Frenier?
This was just to authorize some new staff to regulate the parking. Thank you.
Any questions from council members? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, next we have 2022-59 official plan amendment. Councillor Abdallah.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Andrew Plummer, that bylaw 2022-59, a bylaw to authorize the amendment of the official plan 2016 regarding 50 Alexander Street and 100 Albert Street be adopted and passed, and further, that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Any comments, Councillor Abdallah?
This was presented by the Director of Planning and Bylaw, Ms. Soriel, and it's this change in the zoning to open flood fringe.
Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Next is 2022-60, a zoning bylaw amendment for the waterfront lands. Councillor Lafreniere.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Andrew Plummer, that bylaw 2022-60, a bylaw to authorize the amendment of zoning bylaw 2020-05 regarding 50 Alexander Street and 100 Albert Street be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Any comments, Councillor Lafreniere?
This is just basically married with the bylaw that Councillor Abdallah just read out, and because this is being redesignated, I mean, this just ensures that our waterfront will continue to showcase our community so well, and it will get it better and better as time goes on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council members? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Next bylaw and the last one for this evening, 2022-61, sale of land and property tax write-offs. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Plummer, that bylaw 22-61, a bylaw to authorize the entering into an agreement between the Corporation of the City of Pembroke and Brenda Friederisto for the sale of land and property tax write-off of the property municipally known as 224-230 Hinck Street be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation, and awaiting your review.
Thank you, Councillor Giacono. Any comments?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, this was discussed by information that was presented to us by our CAO this evening. And under the Municipal Act, there's certain requirements for the write-off or sale of tax lands. Thank you.
Do you any questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to motions, we have Resolution 2022-12, Reserve Transfer. Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So we got a lot of numbers to read tonight, but I'll bear with it. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Friendly. The Corporation City of Pembroke deemed it expedient to transfer the following amounts to reserve funds in 2021 fiscal year. Transfer $7,851.40 from equipment and vehicles reserved to financial capital equipment purchases. Transfer $1,500 in lieu of parking reserve fund for 2021 revenues collected. Transfer $12,462 for 2021 Community Improvement Plan surplus and reserves. Transfer $58,202.87 to Disability Reserve Fund and firefighter sick leave. Transfer $53,824.31 for reserves from uniformed firefighters sick leave. Transfer $433,526 for general capital reserves to finance capital projects. Transfer $555,682.52 to general capital reserves. Transfer $15,000 from parking lot reserve. Transfer 2021 building surplus in the amount of $1,165.32 to reserve reflecting the proceeds from property sold. Transfer $24,647.35 to industrial land sales reserve. Transfer 2021 Laurentian Valley cost of doing business revenue in the amount of $153,974.46 to new development reserve. Transfer federal funding in the amount of $1,727,027.15 of the federal gas tax reserve. Transfer $18,316.80 to library reserve and finance for capital project shortfall. Transfer 2021 library fund surplus, the amount of $86,472.95 to library contingency reserve. Transfer $59,397.31 from library contingency and financial capital projects. Transfer $2,000 sick leave contingency from library contingency reserve. Transfer $724.92 from library reserve fund from library capital reserve. Transfer $7,000 to library capital reserve. Transfer provincial funding in the amount of $103,817 to dedicated gas tax reserve. Transfer $126,000 from dedicated gas tax reserve to Pembroke and area handy bus. Transfer $28,533.64 for the admin benefits reserve fund for employee benefits. Transfer $862,397.95 from federal gas tax reserve fund to finance capital. Transfer 2021 water fund surplus in the amount of $127,365.77 to the Waterworks Capital Reserve. Transfer $462,159 from Waterworks Capital Reserve to finance capital. Transfer $200,000 from Water Plant Reserve. Transfer $200,000 for Water Tower Reserve. Transfer $6,526.35 Water Meter Fund to finance capital. Transfer 2021 Waste Management surplus in the amount of $76,819.96 to Waste Management Reserve. Transfer $249,569 to the Working Fund Reserve for project carrying forward 2022 as per 2022 budget to the reserve in 2022. Transfer $151,500 to operating fund projects which carried forward from 2020 to 2021 as per 2021 budget. Transfer $13,500 to OPP Station Reserve Fund. Transfer 2021 sewer fund surplus in the amount of $478,309.24 to Pollution Control Capital Reserve. Transfer $202,028 to Pollution Capital Reserve Fund to finance capital. Transfer $100,000 to Pollution Control Plant Reserve. Transfer $428,520 from Pollution Control Reserve Fund to finance capital. Transfer $469,410 raised through equipment charges and equipment vehicle reserve. Transfer $180,000 to Fire Equipment Reserve. Transfer $59,253.84 to Fire Equipment Reserve and finance fire equipment and capital purchases. Transfer $30,718 to Waterworks Equipment Reserve and Fleet Reserve. Transfer $64,716.50 to Modernize Funding Reserve for grant funding received but not yet spent. Transfer $82,855.89 Modernization Fund to Finance Capital. Transfer 2021 Development Charge Revenue of the $126,443.18 Development Capital Reserve Fund. Transfer $21,080.09 for Development Charges Reserve Fund to the Operating Fund for Development Charges Study. Transfer 2021 Parkland Dedicated Reserve in the amount of $10,425 to the Parks Development Reserve. Transfer $20,000 from Legal Contingency Reserve to fund capital projects. Transfer $149,946.19 from COVID funding to operating the offset COVID costs. Transfer $10,000 pool donation to the Aquatic Center Reserve. Transfer $250,000 from the 2020 fiscal year and surplus to Aquatic Center Reserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all of that.
I will not be repeating it. Thank you very much.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor, and that is carried. Thank you. When the mayor returns, he will provide his report. Are there any notices of motion this evening? Seeing none. Councillor updates. I have Councillor Lafreniere.
Yes, I wanted to report from the Recreation Department that on Saturday, August 27th, there's going to be an event taking place. It's an end of summer bash, and basically it's a youth try it day. So there are going to be representatives and displays from all the local area sporting organizations, so that kids can go and in some cases try the sport or just try to discover what Pembroke has to offer when it comes to recreation and activities for our youth. There's also going to be bouncy castles, interactive games from RyJ's, face painting, balloons, and live music by Sierra Levesque. So I encourage parents to bring their young kids down to the PMC, and that again is Saturday, August 27th. It's free, and it's from 10 till 3. And there's another event that could potentially be taking place, and I think we're waiting confirmation from the city on that. And it's basically, it's Curl Ontario in conjunction with the local Pembroke Curling Centre is going to have a summer street curl, it's called. So curling on the street. It's going to happen at the dead end at the Pembroke Farmers Market on Saturday, August 20th from 9 till noon. So we invite again the young people in our community, maybe even the older people in our community, to come out and have some fun. There'll be representatives from both Curl Ontario to coming out to show you what it's like to curl, and I invite you to come out to that as well. Thank you.
Councillor Abdallah?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have a few items tonight. On behalf of yourself and Councillor Lafreniere. July 15th, the Pembroke Carrefour Community Garden had their grand opening. Local media, MPP John Yakubuski was there, the Mayor of Pembroke, Mike LeMay, and other dignitaries. And we had a wonderful opening with speeches. And the president of the St. Joseph's Food Bank, Renee LaChapelle, gave a nice talk on the benefit of the community garden for the food bank. So it's we're in the height of growing season. It's growing very well, and we're very thankful for our partnership with the City of Pembroke on that. On the weekend, I attended two events. The Paddle Fest at Riverside Park, which is the stand-up paddleboard and the kayak and the canoe race from Petawawa, and then local race in Pembroke. It's part of the Water and Dirt Festival, so it was very well attended. Lots of tourists from outside. Riverside Park was full. It looks beautiful. And on Sunday, I attended the skateboard event, the tribute to SXX Skateboard Shop that was run by Tony Bowles and his wife Alicia. They were considered the forerunners, the leaders of the skateboard community in Pembroke. This is when Councillor Frenier went to bat for the skateboard community, and your name was very mentioned again this weekend, Councillor Frenier. So it was a wonderful event at the skateboard park. Family and youth were there. That park has come a long way. It's very well used. It's very important that we maintain it. And I was talking to Councillor Frenier before the meeting tonight, and we just want to remind everyone that the city sponsored $500 for prizes out of our family youth budget. We have $13,500, so if anybody has an idea for a program for youth or family, they come to the Recreation Committee, and if we agree, we accept it. So this is a good example of where the money goes towards in the community. This weekend, I had the pleasure for 24 years of chairing the Kinsman Cops and Kids Fishing Derby. When the Kinsman Club folded, the Connect Club took it over, and then the Connect Club folded, unfortunately. But thank goodness the women in the Connect Club that were there, they still run it with the local police association. So from noon till 12 down to the waterfront, the Kids and Cops and Canadian Tire Fishing Derby is going to be held. Also, the Civitan Club have their bass tournament this weekend on Saturday at the waterfront. The last thing I want to talk about, as I mentioned earlier, we've Deputy Mayor chairs the Police Services Board, and on July 28th, they granted the Pembroke Waterfront Park as a special community watch zone to be proactive and to ensure that we can enjoy a safe, welcoming place at the waterfront in years to come. Signs will be going up next week to designate this. On August 27th, on Saturday, August 27th, at 11 a.m., we're going to have a special meeting at the amphitheater, a brief meeting to explain the program, and for any member of the community that wants to volunteer to be part of the community watch zone. So that's my report for tonight. Thank you.
Any other councillor updates? Seeing none. I understand, Councillor Abdallah, you have a motion to enter a closed session.
Yes, I do. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Ed Jacquino, that this meeting become a closed meeting to discuss the security of the property of the municipality or local board, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, and personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees.
Thank you. Call the question. Those in favor of, okay, that's carried. We are now moving into a closed session.